Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Bree Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Bri Speaks, and for today's segment of Bree Speaks Her Mind, we are talking about white people. And I know like what a broad and big topic, but specifically I want to drill down on the mentality white people have towards authority and how it impacts their ability to deconstruct the internalized racism that most white people in America have. I know, big topic, but here we go. And this topic was really inspired by my TikTok conversations. Um, the first one is going to be I made a TikTok saying that dyeing your hair blonde as a white woman is supporting white supremacy. And y'all, when I say the white women were mad, they were mad at me. They came and they dominated the comment section and told me how I was wrong, how I'm racist, actually. Believe it or not, you guys, I'm the racist one here. And that dyeing their hair blonde has absolutely nothing to do with racism, and it's just how they prefer to wear their hair. And I shouldn't talk about, and I shouldn't police women, you all. That makes me anti-feminist and makes me the problem, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to talk about, just that situation and more. And so, okay. And then also I recently heard a TikTok that was talking about the right versus the left and how we keep having discussions on topics that aren't, and we're not coming to the same conclusions because the foundation of morality is different between the right and the left. And I think, not to say, all white people are right or all black people are left, but I would say that the framework that she used was very enlightening. And I think it does speak to a lot of the mentality that Democrats versus Republicans, and in my mind, this will help us understand white people versus non-white people, how they look at, and not all of them, but stick with me, how they look at how they approach empathy or morality. And so she explained that when you are on the left, your sense of empathy or morality comes from a couple things. What is it that's happening, and is it care versus harm? Was the big one. Like you don't care if you're doing something that causes harm, and that is immoral. I can see empathy for the people who are having harm done to them, even like no matter the circumstances. And then also fairness versus cheating was another kind of morality pillar or building block on the left. So she was saying that things that are fair or things that are unfair it matters a lot to people on the left. And then so on the inverse, on the other side, for the right, people, their morality or their empathy, their building blocks are based on being loyal versus betraying someone. If someone is in a position of authority, are you following the rules of authority, or are you subverting that authority? That if you are subverting that authority, you are being immoral, and you don't deserve empathy. If you're being loyal, you deserve empathy, but if you're but if you're a betraying person, like that is immoral and you don't deserve empathy. Another one she spoke about is the right. They looks at morality through like sanctity versus degradation, which, that makes sense. So it's something like sacred or pure or, like innocent, versus something that is dirty or like a degradation to something that is valued as sacred. So when you like put those things in a bucket, it totally makes sense why the right is, when they see Trump doing something like deporting illegal, quote unquote, illegal immigrants. They see him as being loyal to America. They see him as an authority figure doing the right thing, and they see America as this sacred entity that needs to be protected from the degradation of illegal immigrants. Versus people on the left, the Democrats, we see people who are being harmed, people who are not being taken care of with care, and we see them as like it's not fair that they have to be deported. It's not fair that they aren't able to get through the judicial system, the immigration system the proper way, because we know that the immigration system is very fucked up, and it takes a very long time for you to get through that process. So a lot of people will come over illegally, not because they want to, but because they basically have no other choice. So, and then one other kind of category was liberty versus oppression. And this woman said that through the studies, both left and right see liberty versus oppression as like a pillar of morality. Like if something is taking away people's freedoms, or oppressing people, you would see they both see that as an issue, but the way that that shows up is very different. So white, like I was going to say white people, Republicans, but you see how that Republicans / white people. We'll tie it back to white people in a second. Just stick with me. But Republicans see their liberties to, fight against the government or be free from the government or use their money however they want to, versus they see the government telling them how to use their money or telling them what to do as oppression. Whereas a lot of people on the left see that if a population isn't getting their opportunities that they are rightfully, like not necessarily rightfully owed, but like if everyone's not getting the same amount of opportunities, that is oppressive. But we also see that as unfair, going back to the fairness versus cheating or fairness versus unfair pillar of our morality. It's tied to liberty versus oppression. Okay, so I'm gonna for the video folks, I'm gonna put this kind of visual up here, but if you are listening via audio, go to YouTube and you'll find the visual. So with that in mind, after she explained that, it really gave me a brain blast of how white people, how they think about Black people and how they think about racism and how they think about what is like, and really it's like not only how they think about it, but why is it so hard for white people to see racism? Why is it so hard for white people to deconstruct racism from their minds and their bodies and their hearts and their spirits? Why is it so difficult? And now that I've been learning, y'all, I've been studying white people and I'm learning that they are raised from birth to respect authority, to not go against authority, to not question authority, even from like from a religious standpoint. It is now my understanding that like while in a Black church, the pastor might preach about, uplifting your spirit and like being resilient and like basically really teaching people that poverty is okay, you'll get through it. But in the white church, you'll hear a lot more messages about, follow God. You have to listen to God. God is the ultimate father. He's the ultimate decision maker. You like anything you do should be passed through God first. It's really teaching to submit to authority, to not betray authority. It teaches them that authority is the ultimate righteousness, and to go against authority makes you a sinner. And that mentality is like very pervasive throughout the white community. And, if you're a white person listening to this and you feel like I'm wrong, open to the discussion, find me on TikTok at Bri Speaks, Bri.speaks on TikTok. But I've talked to white people, and I've talked to white people on TikTok and they have shared this with me. This is why I'm coming to these conclusions like now, because I've gotten this information from white people, and they are telling me like they are raised to respect authority, respect the word of the government, respect police officers, right? Whereas we know in Black houses, we have to teach our sons from a very young age, be very wary of the police, be very, very wary of the government. The government has put crack cocaine in Black neighborhoods. The government has put policies in place to ensure Black people don't have opportunities. The government has allowed things to happen repeatedly over and over that we know will cause harm to the Black community. But because white people are raised from the standpoint of that, is like the government is good, the government is here to help, and not only are they raised to believe that, their experience reflects that. So I think, it just makes it so it pisses me off when I think about when slavery was quote unquote abolished. It was not abolished. Slavery is still happening in prisons every day. But when the old time slavery was abolished, we were promised, Black people were promised 40 acres and a mule. You'll get these acres, you'll get this mule, and you'll be able to, start anew. Of course, that never happened. But when white people were, I don't know if it was the Homestead Act is what comes to mind, but let me look it up so I can give you accurate information. Okay, I found it. So the Homestead Act was signed into law in 1862 by President Abraham Lincoln, and he promised white people 160 acres of land if they settled on Western land. So, America was the 13 colonies, and those colonies were along the eastern coast of the United States. But they wanted people to start expanding west and, towards California. But people didn't want to. There was, it wasn't really incentivizing. So he said, everyone, if he didn't, I don't know if he said this explicitly, but he said, if you want to, please go settle that land, farm it. I will give it to you for free. All you have to do is pay like a small fine to file your paperwork, and the land is yours. You can have it. And, good luck, have fun. They said this was including African American exodusers fleeing Jim Crow. But the thing is, and the long story short is, white people never saw that land. Black people never got that land, and many white people got that land, and it is the basis for a lot of white people's wealth, that especially in the West and the Midwest, still till this day. So it's just, so white people, when they follow authority, they get what they are told. It's like the United States government gives them an honest promise and holds to that promise and does whatever they can to help and support white Americans, while Black Americans always get this short end of the stick. And so when Black Americans say, hey, we don't like the government sucks, white people are like, you are not listening to authority, you must not be doing it right, you. It gives them the ability to then blame Black people, because the way they were raised was to respect authority, and if you respect authority, you will be rewarded as such. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Because it's like, the people who are making these rules, who are making these situations, they know exactly what they're doing, and they know that they know that, white people have the majority of power in the United States. I want to say they have the most, like, the biggest population, but I'm really starting to question that more and more every day, especially as they have this big push for having white people have more kids, and the extinction burst and all the stuff. White people, their population is declining. So I'm like, are they still the majority? I'm not sure. But we do know they do own the majority of wealth in America and the majority of political power in America. And so they know that if they appeal to the white gaze, which is what I call, like, if you have the male gaze, you appeal to the male gaze by having some woman scantily dressed, likely, men will look at it. The white gaze is when you have Black people in positions that white people are used to seeing them in. So like an entertainment position, or like the help position, or like, just when you see a Black person in a movie as an extra, and they are just there to facilitate the personal growth or the story of the centered white person, white people love to see that. Like, that is their favorite thing. If you put a person of color in the center of a movie, they are much less likely to watch it. They're much less likely to pay for it. They're much less likely to, relate, quote unquote, relate to that movie. So what was I saying? Oh boy. Yeah, so I've been finding it very difficult to teach people how to not be racist, because their very foundations are built on racism. Like, the foundation of their being, of their existence, is built on these systems and stereotypes, and like, again, even the way that they are taught morality, even the way they are taught empathy, they are taught, loyalty versus betrayal. They are taught that if you betray the whiteness, if you betray the group, if you go against authority, that is me, the parent, who is telling you what to do, and I'm being told what to do by the government. I am the authority. If you go against my authority, you're being subversive, and you're also betraying me and the group. And so, like, just the way that they are literally taught to think is it is conducive to their racism. It is conducive to them never understanding the plight of Black people. And it was so annoying because I was arguing with someone on TikTok. I know I have no business arguing with people on TikTok, but there was this white man who was saying that why should white people why should they try to do better, essentially, when Black people don't want to be in community with them anyways. And I was like, whoa, like, so you're telling me there were so many things with that, so many things. So the first thing that comes to mind is like, you don't want to deconstruct racism for the sake of deconstructing racism. You want to deconstruct racism for a reward at the end, saying that you can now be in community with Black people. So it's just like, what, like, you don't want to just not be racist. You feel like if you're not racist, then you have to get something for it. Like, that is weird. That's creepy. And white people do that. And in general, as a whole, they have this sense of, I cannot do anything without being rewarded for it or being recognized for it. Like, white people need recognition for everything they do. It is the weirdest thing in the world. Like, as I've been doing more and more anti-racism content on TikTok, there are so many white people in my comments who just come in and they're just like, but what about this? Can I do this? Or can I don't know. They're often looking for my affirmation. And some of it is like appropriate for, like, let me ask this question. Is this okay if I do this? But a lot of it is like, no, so it's not even asking questions. It's like, well, I do this, like, and it's just like, you can tell they're waiting for them, like, a pat on the back. They're waiting for a good job, Sarah. I'm proud of you. Sometimes I give it to them. I just, for the sake of engagement and views and having them come back, I'm like, yeah, great job. Like, wonderful. Like, I'll pander. I'll pander to white people occasionally, which now makes me feel like I need to reevaluate my dignity a little bit, because why am I pandering to white people? But it's not pandering in the way of like, I feel like I'm degrading myself. I would never. But it is like, I know that they're looking for a pat on the head. And so it's just like, I'll give them a pat on the head. That's not hurting me none. But now that I think about it, as I'm deconstructing what I'm doing right now in live on this podcast, it is like, it's giving them what they want. And I feel like I shouldn't do that. Because it is reinforcing that they get a reward when they do a good non-racist thing. And they really need to get used to being not racist in silence. Like, the only time they should speak up about like racism is if they're actively fighting someone else who is being racist. But other than that, they're not racist, they really got to learn how to be racist, like, in silence. And so back to this guy, he wants this reward of like being in community with Black people if he does the work of becoming an anti-racist. But another thing that had brought to my mind, his comment of like, why would we do this work without, if Black people don't want to be in community with us, it is still putting the earnest on Black people to like, it's still putting us in a place of, we are wrong if we don't want to be in community with white people. Like, that was what the comment was saying. And I'm just like, he's like basically, even after they've done the work, if black people still want to be away from white people, then you guys are the problem. Black people are the problem. And I'm just like, sir, for the last 400 to 500 years, even like till this day, we are still finding Black men hung from trees. We are still finding Black boys hurt and harmed by white people, by racist white boys specifically, or white women who are, they cry, oh, this happened to me, and then the Black man gets sent to prison for the rest of their lives. Y'all are still actively hurting and harming us, and y'all have been for the last 500 years. You feel like you have the right the right to say that I have to be in community with you. You could be the safest white people in the whole wide world. That doesn't mean that we have to, even if it doesn't mean we have to forgive you. And even if we do forgive the white community for the atrocities they've committed against Black people, that doesn't mean we have to be like, we have to allow you to be in our space. Like, what is that? What the entitlement that white people have to Black people? It is just, yeah, it is something else. It is something else. It is something different. It is something strange and weird. And I'm grappling with it. And I was thinking about like just no longer doing anti-racism content, because after that post about the blonde woman, and I had over like 12,000 comments from white women telling me I was wrong. There were some white women who came and said, you know, I get it, you're right, like we understand what you're trying to say, which I wasn't saying like you are a racist if you dye your hair blonde. I wasn't saying, you know, you are dressing up for with the white hoods and the hats and the KKK meetings. I wasn't saying any of that, but they took it as such. And it's just like, that's another thing that white people do is they are like, it's almost like they all have autism. Again, nothing wrong with autism. I love autistic people. They're fantastic. But in the way that autistic people have a really hard time kind of reading between the lines, or like reading body language, or not taking things extremely literally, white people have that exact same plight. Like if you say something to a white person, they just really take it at face value, and they don't think deeply, they don't think critically. And again, I feel like they've been taught not to. They've been taught, especially from a Christian standpoint, Christianity teaches you don't think deeply, don't question, have faith in the things that are unseen, even though white people they don't believe in things that are unseen. They don't believe in like I don't know how to explain that. That's a different podcast of their lack of ability to believe in like spirituality, but they believe in God, but they don't believe in, I don't know. Okay. Anyways. Yeah, they don't believe, like, they don't understand words. They don't understand like the meaning behind the meaning, or the question behind the question. If I say what blonde hair supporting white supremacy, they take that as blonde hair is literally supporting like white supremacy. Like they cannot understand that that word supporting doesn't have to be an active word. It can be a like you can passively support something, you can unknowingly support something, you can accidentally support something. But they took that as, if you said supporting, so you think that I support white supremacy if I am. And then that's another thing I said, if you dye your hair blonde, you are supporting white supremacy. And so all of the quote unquote natural blondes, because ooh, y'all know a lot of them are dyed blonde, but all the ones who are claiming natural blondness came into the comments and saying like, but what about me? I'm natural blonde, so am I supporting white supremacy? Am I a racist now? And it's just like, I said, if you dye your hair blonde, why are you saying that anyone who is blonde is now supporting white supremacy? Like, y'all are just, they take things at face value when they don't want to understand things, and then they add things that are not there just to ensure that they are being heard, that just, I don't know, just to intentionally misunderstand what people are trying to say. Yeah, so I was just, there's so much. So that post made me realize how much racism is in the white community, even to the point where like they're just not even open to listening. And even the ones who are open to listening, they just don't get it. They don't get it. They don't understand, not even from an empathetic standpoint of like putting yourself in someone's shoes, but like from a logical standpoint, they don't understand how racism could be embedded in their souls. This blonde thing. I asked so many of them, what about Hitler? Like, what about him and the Aryan race, and how he was saying blonde hair, blue eyes is the ultimate pinnacle of beauty. That is like peak success as a white person. I was just like, did y'all not learn about that? Did y'all not read those books? Is that not a part of your curriculum? Is it like, do you not know who Anne Frank is and the boy in the striped pajamas? Like, none of that means anything to you? Like that was peak racism. And well, not peak racism. It's all of it is peak racism. It's like it's perpetually peak racism. But I'm just like, that is literally their thing, is blonde hair, blue eyes. And so if I say that blonde hair is supporting white supremacy, you see no connection. And then you come into my comments and say there is no connection at all whatsoever between blonde hair and white supremacy. You don't understand how many white women came in my comments and said that. What does blonde hair have to do with white supremacy? What are you talking about? You're nuts. You're crazy. You're too woke. You're thinking too deep. I just like my hair this way. And when I asked them, why do you like your hair that way? They all said, I just do. It's just pretty because my skin tone is this and it goes with my skin tone. I'm just like, so you feel like the skin tone that you're born with doesn't go with the hair color that you're born with? You just feel like that just can't work out. It just doesn't look good. I was like, what did your ancestors say? Your ancestors who didn't have access to a box dye, they had to just go around with low self-esteem. No, they didn't go around with low self-esteem. They didn't think about the fact that their hair wasn't an appropriate skin color, their hair color to their skin. It just, they didn't think about it because no one brought it to them as a problem. And because someone has brought it to you as a problem, now you have digested this information and now you believe it. They are so mind controlled. They are so mind controlled. They're not taught to think independently. They're not taught to follow their hearts. They're not taught to introspect and learn about who they are and what they want and figure out their souls. They're not taught about any of that. They're just taught, you grow up, you be white, you go to college, you get married, you have a job, you get a house, you get kids, you get a dog, you get a fence, and then you're happy. And so when they get all that stuff and then they're not happy, they go shoot up schools. They take antidepressants. They just get angrier and angrier, and they just feel full of hatred because they keep trying to consume things to make them feel better. And what people don't understand is consumption is only feeding the ego. The ego is the only thing that eats. The soul, it eats, but the soul, your spirit, it cannot be fed by external means. It can never be fed by external means. It can only be fed by going within, by like sitting with self, by introspection, by meditation, by silence, by learning who you are and what you want and asking yourself questions that no one else can answer but you. That's how you feed your soul. But white people have never did that. They've never had to sit and think. Never, I was like, speaking of, I was just like, I was reading, again, I'm just going through TikToks at this point. But, if you guys have heard about the recent white woman who she was on day 9 of taking showers every day until she learned to like showers. And it's like, she only took showers once or twice a week, she said. And even after Pilates, she wouldn't shower. She would just like dry shampoo and deodorant, because she said she wouldn't sweat. I told that to my husband the other day. He said, ew. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I'm just like, why don't white people understand that even if you don't sweat, like even you have dead skin that accumulates. Your body sheds so much skin in a day, and you need to wash that off. And like, even if you exercise at all, even if you don't sweat, like your pores still open up and they still release like stuff, and you like, oh my gosh. Anyways, I'm not going to go into that. But where was I going with this? White woman doesn't shower. She was starting to shower daily. Oh yes, and I think where I was going with this is that during those times where you're in the shower, you sit and you introspect, you think. Like everyone always says, you have your best thoughts in the shower, and that's because you don't have you don't have external like inputs. You don't have things coming, like you don't have like, there's no screens coming into your brain. Some people have music, but yeah, even music though, even music is an external input. Like most times if people are in the shower and it's just them in the shower, and there's no external stimuli coming into their brains, their bodies, their minds, it allows your mind to like think about what it hasn't been able to think about. It allows your mind to like have thoughts bubble up to the top of it, and it allows your mind to like digest and like bring together concepts that it hadn't had the chance to do before. And that's how you have those brain blasts, those aha moments, because your brain has space to think about like what it already has instead of thinking about, okay, now I'm getting more information, I have to process it. Like I'm getting more information, I have to process it. I'm getting more information, I have to process it. It allows your brain to actually like sit down and actually, I wouldn't even say, sorry. When you are sitting in a place of silence or sitting in a place where there is no external stimuli coming in, it allows your brain to process information that it already has. When you are going through your day and you are, let's say you're bored, quote unquote, right? And you open your phone and you start ingesting information, ingesting stimuli, ingesting music, ingesting a podcast, your brain is actively intaking information. And while your brain is actively intaking information, it is not also processing information that it already has. It can't do both of those things at the same time. I mean, unless you have some super cool extra fantabulous brain that, most people don't have. If you're a regular person, you don't have the ability to like digest information from some time ago while also taking in information right now. And so I was saying all that to say is like white people, first of all, they don't, to my understanding, they don't shower every day. And so just that is like them not having space to sit down and let information that they've received like process in their minds. And so it's just like they never get, they are a consuming consumption culture. And so they never give themselves space to just sit and think, sit and understand, sit and process, sit and digest, sit and metabolize, like just sit and be. And I challenge all of my listeners, if you're listening, to carve out 5 to 10 minutes of your day every single day to ensure you have time to just, even if it is just in the shower, if it's in the shower. I am super guilty of listening to music in the shower. I'm super guilty of listening to videos while I'm in the shower. I got one of those little phone shower mounts, so that my brain isn't bored, quote unquote, while I'm in the shower. But I do ensure that I take time to just sit and do nothing. You gotta learn how to sit and do nothing. It is so good for your mind, your body, and your spirit to sit and do nothing, because that's when you find out the most about yourself. That's when you find out what you want, what you've been like. You have great ideas. Like, your brain has so much goodness already. It doesn't need more. It does need more. You have to stimulate your brain, because then you'll get bored and go crazy. But you also need time to take that information and digest it. So make sure you carve out time in your day to do that. Even if it's just before bed. Like whenever I'm going to sleep, I make sure I power down. At least 10 minutes before I'm going to sleep. That's not a lie. You really should do more than that. But during that 10 minutes before I go to sleep, I'm like, I do meditation. I do very intentional deep breathing. I don't just just lay there and wait till I go to sleep. I do things with my quiet time. I want everyone to do that, because if you don't, you might become a white person. No, I'm just kidding. But, or maybe I'm not, I don't know. But I'm like, so sorry, going back to the beginning. White people are racist, and to deconstruct that racism, not only would you have to teach them the history about Blackness and racism in America, you would literally have to reconfigure the way that they think, to the point of Black people don't see authority as something you have to follow. It's something you should follow. It's probably in your best interest to follow. But if that authority figure is doing something to actively cause you harm, or doing something that is unfair or unjust or unreasonable or crazy, we will not follow that authority figure. And then we get called, rebellious. But white people will follow that authority figure to the ends of the earth, to the depths of hell. And this is how we get MAGA. Because it is morally just in their minds to be loyal and to be subservient to an authority figure. And that also goes into racism, because when a white person, because the way that the social construct of America has been built, they have been always placed in a position of authority to people of color. And so throughout history, they have been the authority figure to people of color. And so even though that has legally been done away with, white people aren't legally the owners of Black people or people of color, or they're not legally entitled to, be an authority figure to Black people or people of color, they still have that energy. They still have the culture of whiteness being an authority figure to others is still very much there. And that's how you get your Karens. That's how you get your, I'm gonna call the police right now on you. It is because, or the people I'm gonna follow you around the store, or if you have a Black person such as myself who was on the internet saying something that a white person vehemently disagrees with, they have they feel like they have to correct me, or they have to exert their authority over me as a white person. They don't understand that. They know, if you ask them, are you an authority person over Black people, they'll say no. But when you like but in action, in practice, they are always feeling like they have to watch Black people or watch people of color, or correct them if they're wrong, or call the police if they feel like they're suspicious. Like they still act as this authority figure over people of color, and they don't understand that is rooted in, like, that they don't understand that's rooted in racism. They just think that they feel like they have to do this because it's the right thing to do. Again, it goes to their sense of morality, is I'm an authority figure over these people, so it is right for me to be this authority figure over these people. But they don't know that consciously. They just have that subconsciously. And I'm just like, how do you fix that? How do you fix that? I mean, it's like, and I guess one way is kind of what we're seeing now, where they are seeing that authority can be wrong, authority can be harmful, when it's like literally smacking them in the face with Trump. But it's like, is that going to last? Will they? Or I just don't, and I don't believe it. I believe after Trump is out of a position of power and things go back to normal, they will go back to normal, which is a racism that is not as loud, racism that is, a lot more quiet, a lot more subversive, a lot more covert instead of overt. And I have no faith. I have no faith in white people, because it's just been centuries of them having this mentality, and they've never, and that's another thing, they've never really taken accountability for the racism in America. Like, white people to this day, they're like, anytime you bring up something, it's just like, oh, no, like, get over asking for reparations, you're never going to get it. Or like, oh, I didn't own slaves, so I shouldn't have to worry about it. Like, it's like, anytime you ask white people to take accountability for any sort of racism at all, it's not their fault. We need to get over it. It happened so long ago. It's not happening now. What can't Black people do that white people can do? It's like, these systems of oppression don't exist. I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to go back. I want to go back to Africa. I've never been to Africa, but I know that's where my ancestors are from. So I would like to take my lineage back to Africa, because it's ghetto over here. It's ghetto over here, and I'm sick and tired of. I've been trying to teach white people, but it's just like an infinite well of racism in each and every one of them. And then as a collective, there's an infinite well of racism throughout the America. So it's just, I don't know, it feels like I'm fighting a losing battle. It feels like I'm fighting a losing battle. And then it's just like, it's not my job. It's not my job. It's like, part of me feels like only Black people can teach them how to be anti-racist, because all of them are a little bit racist, or at least the vast majority of them. There are a few, like Jane Elliott, the old white lady, she gets it. And, and then there are like some who I think really truly get it and see it, but there are just so many more who think they get it and they don't get it, who don't get it at all, who don't even try to get it. And it's tiring. I'm tired, y'all. All right. I think this is good. This is enough. This is enough rambling. I usually will do a second segment called Systems of Separation and talk through which of these systems are separating us. But, I think racism is a system of separation, and I think we've talked enough about racism for the day. So anyways, thanks for coming to Bri Speaks podcast. I hope you have enjoyed this. I don't know what this was, this session of whatever I just talked about. I hope you either learned something or felt affirmed in something. Thanks for coming to Bri Speaks podcast. Please don't hesitate to follow me on YouTube at Bri Speaks, TikTok at Bri.speaks. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.